What is going on, football fam? This is Dave Sarner, your host of the Rise and Fall Fantasy Football Show. Welcome to the Week 6 edition here, as we're going to get into every single matchup, every single game, and every single player that you guys need to know about going into the big bye week season. And let's face it, Week 6, we're pretty much halfway through the season now, getting ready for the big playoff push. If you manage to go 4-1 or 3-2 or 5-0, you're really feeling good right now, especially with the way this season has. And if you're at 2-3, 1-4, or even 0-5, I get it. Everything looks bleak right now, but let's be clear. This is the kind of year that anything can happen. I was 1-6 one year, and I ended up coming back winning 6 straight and won my championship. So there is hope. If you guys have had a rough season, but you're making deals, you're trying to, get your team back to where it needs to be, there is still hope. And I'm hoping today I'm going to be able to help you here on the Rise and Fall Fantasy Football Show Week 6 edition. Now, before we get into the episodes, just keep in mind that we record these episodes every Tuesday night or every Wednesday morning. So if there are any news, notes, and updates that do occur after and Wednesday afternoon on, make sure you guys keep on top of that. Check out World of World, check out the Yahoo and ESPN notifications on fantasy, and make sure that you guys have the right guys in your lineup. With all that being said, let's get into the matchups here for Week 6. The next matchup we got here, man, and this is one I really wish I had Matt Ferreira, my co-host usually for this episode. Giants against the Washington football team, division match. It's probably the dumpster fire matchup for a lot of you guys that are following, that watching, all that good stuff. And I get it. Listen, I'm not even excited for this matchup. A lot of question marks, a lot of blunders and everything. And I think the one thing we might be able to say confidently is I think the defenses will play well. I think it's more than dice to do. I think it's more credit to the offenses being so bad than it is the defenses being so good. But all that being said, Kyle Allen is supposed to get the start. He did practice yesterday, I believe, so he is going to be the guy if he's healthy and is going in there. And I didn't hate Kyle Allen's performance last week before he went out with the injury. It was the first life of offense that I saw in that offense in a while. Gibson was getting most of the points that he got there right at the beginning. Nothing sexy. It was a tough defense in Los Angeles. But he was getting involved, and he was definitely a guy that was getting highlighted and featured, rather, from Kyle Allen. So I think Kyle Allen goes. Antonio Gibson, don't give up on him just yet. I actually do have him in a trade right now. I might be trying to get someone of a high caliber running back nature for Gibson and maybe Tyler Higbee. Don't think it's going to happen. That all being said, guys, listen, if you have some other options, maybe this is the week you do it. Giants are actually pretty stingy against the run. You look at their numbers here. They are 15th against the run, 27th against quarterback. So obviously Kyle Allen is a rough start here. And tight ends, you're not going to go with Logan Thomas. So I wouldn't worry about this. But when I say a tough start, I don't mean impossible for Antonio Gibson and even Terry McLaurin this week. 13th and 15th is a weakness. Running backs and receivers do get some points against them. We saw Ezekiel Elliott have a pretty good game last week. We saw CeeDee Lamb have a good, pretty solid game and all that good stuff. But this team is playing pretty well. James Bradbury most likely will shadow Terry McLaurin. That's going to be a little troublesome. I don't love Terry this week. Let me make this clear. I don't love him this week. This 13th is pretty deceiving. It usually goes up against teams that have multiple receivers and so forth. We don't quite have that. And I don't know who from this area here, Isaiah Wright, Antonio Gandy Golden. Wright's an undrafted rookie. He's had some flashes, but he's had some really bad plays too. Inman, saying Dontrell Inman's name doesn't even excite me down there whatsoever. Okay, so and in fact, it maybe gives me an innie rather than giving me any excitement. I just don't trust anyone from this football team right now. The Washington football team in this matchup, outside of maybe Antonio Gibson in your flex. I don't think he'll be your RB2, but I think flex option, even at 7.6, I think his floor is around 8 to 9 fantasy points minimum. J.D. McKissick got involved when Alex Smith was back in, but Kyle Allen, it was Antonio Gibson's show. And I don't know if there was a correlation, but I do believe that Antonio Gibson is a guy who will have a higher floor, maybe a lower ceiling, but a pretty high floor. Now, the next team here On the other side of this matchup, we have Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not playing the best football of his career. It's funny. We talk about how bad Dwayne Haskins was and so forth. Daniel Jones isn't playing much better. In fact, he's actually playing maybe worse. Arguably, he has not had good games this year. This team is 0-5. It's a tough year for Daniel Jones. He is missing Saquon Barkley, but you have Darius Slayton, you have Golden Tate, you have Evan Engram, you have Devontae Freeman stepping up, and you have guys who you drafted on this line. So it's not like, yeah, they have some injuries. Don't get me wrong, they have injuries. I know they're like one of the top teams with injuries right now. So there is reasons for this. But at the same time, I think Daniel should be playing better than he is. If not, then maybe he should at least be getting the criticism, if any, that Dwayne Haskins has received. Because, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty comparable situation for both of them. And I think they're both trending in the same fucking direction and playing pretty much the same type of football. So, I'm not going to say what everyone wants to say. And I'm not going to go into the color of someone's skin. Because I don't know if it's that. I think every team has their own situation. Every team has different things that they see. And yes, Daniel Jones hasn't played well this year. But he also has shown some flashes and dynamic plays. And that's the difference, I think, between him and Haskins. Haskins has had maybe one or two legitimate plays where I'm like, okay, And I think one was the Terry last year. But this year, I haven't seen that. And I get the offense is a little new to him. And I think that's really what Ron Rivera's saying here about benching him, is that he said, listen, he's still in the plans. We're not off on Dwayne Haskins. It's just that they felt that, hey, he needs to develop. He needs to be able to sit behind someone. But now with the trade rumors going around, now it sounds like maybe, just maybe, that no one's been inquiring. Dwayne Haskins hasn't asked for a trade, and that this has all been fluff. Very possible. Jason Lockenfor is the one who reported it, and I said to people when he reported it, just be mindful, JLC hates the Washington football team. Hates them. He will go out of his way to literally try to throw fire on any little rumor he hears through this organization, and that's kind of what we might be seeing here. I do believe maybe Dwayne is in the plans of the future. I think if Kyle struggles the next 2 weeks, then maybe that's what we see. Now, I don't agree with Alex Smith as a backup over Dwayne Haskins. That's where I'm a little hesitant that, hey, is he really in your plans? So I guess we'll see moving forward. But in my opinion here, I think in this matchup in particular, from a fantasy standpoint, we got to look at these. Now, Evan Engram, guys, love Evan Engram this week. He's one of my must starts against the Washington football team, whose linebackers and safeties, the middle of the field is awful. And I mean awful. Gerald Everett going off against us. Mark Andrews going off for 2 touchdowns against us. Guys, tight ends put up points. Evan Engram had an up week, 7 targets here overall, or 2 targets here rather. He had the touchdown, he had the rushing touchdown. So not a great week. He only had 2 targets for 16 yards, but he is a must start for me in my opinion. 5th overall, giving up the most points to tight ends. It's the weakest position on this Washington defense, and I think he's the must start. Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, all the quarterbacks, you're not starting those guys against the Giants. They're tough there. Like I said, Antonio Gibson, go for him. I like him this week. Terry McLaurin, be mindful of that 13th. You're going to want to start him. But if you have a maybe better option, James Bradbury has been shadowing these receivers, and he just shut down Amari Cooper and a bunch of other guys. So I'm not excited about Terry McLaurin in this matchup at all. I think he is a candidate to really fail. He might be a faller on my list, unfortunately, this week. And a guy who I might have to play. I might even be benching him for Justin Jefferson this week. So I still have to make that decision, and we'll talk about that later on. On the other side of things, we have the Daniel Jones effect. He does have a good matchup, but the receivers, listen, they've struggled. Running backs have struggled. Teams have struggled against this Washington team, and the only reason why quarterbacks are doing a little better is because of the position that the offense on their side has put this defense in, short fields and so forth. Now, granted, they've been a little Swiss cheese lately in terms of yards, in terms of touchdowns rather, but I think this is a little deceiving from one end, and I think that's the running back. I do think Devontae Freeman is a pretty decent start this week. I think they'll use him in the pass and run game maybe, but I think he'll get some things going here. I don't know if there was any major injuries to Washington last week. I don't believe there was, so I think they're fully healthy. Scherf is returning to practice this week, guys. I don't know if he's going to be back for Washington. That would be a big boost for Antonio Gibson. It would make me feel a lot more comfortable. But the line for Washington is banged up. Giants are banged up right now, too. I do expect some points out of this. And so if I'm going to go with anyone, guys, let's just break down here. Antonio Gibson, I like. Terry McLaurin, I don't this week. Kyle Allen, I mean, I'm not going with that. It's a weird sleeper situation. I don't like it. Staying away from the tight ends here. Washington's defense could do some things, but I think Evan Engram really shreds them this week. I think Ingram's going to go off this week. I love him this week. Devontae Freeman, I'm comfortable in the flex, but I would probably go with Gibson over Freeman, maybe. Yeah, Gibson over Freeman for me. And then Darius Slayton, I'm probably fading out. I mean, Kendall Fuller's playing some really good football, one of the highest ranked corners right now. The secondary is weird because the Washington secondary, the corners are really good. But the safeties right now, Collins, I'll admit it, he's not great in coverage. He's a good in-box linebacker, but we don't have that guy that can really cover the back end of the field at free safety that can allow Collins to really move freely around. He has to do a little bit more coverage, and that's going to hurt them. Plus, their linebacker's not great, so fire up Evan Engram this week. He could be even a top 6 tight end, and I have a feeling he could even put up 20 fantasy points for you this week. So I love him as a sleeper. Gibson we like. Darius Slayton we don't. Oh, by the way, Giants defense, you could take a flyer on that. I do think it could be a good situation. They've been a good defense. So next up on the agenda here, we have the Falcons at the Vikings. Guys, this could be the shootout of the week, or it can, just flail out like it did, a couple times already with the Falcons. Matt Ryan, guys, what the fuck's going on with him? His receivers, his passing game, it should be one of the more highlighted games. And I get Julio's been out, but Julio being out should not handicap this offense the way it does, or handicap Matt Ryan the way it does. Now, the good bright spot here is Todd Gurley is just going off. He's one of the guys in my podcast league with Matt, and Matt's the host of that league. And I think it's funny because he was a guy who I was really not sure of, and he's really turned into a great asset this year. I have him and Gibson, and I'm doing pretty well in that league as well. If you have Gurley, you're loving that. Now, granted, Brian Hill might be on the free agent waiver wire. With the injuries that we've seen, guys, I really do recommend if you have Gurley and you can go out and get Brian Hill, keep him on your bench. I did that in that league, and I do kind of need a different running back. But in my opinion, it's really important to have the backup. We don't know if Gurley's going to go down whenever, but it seems like this line can allow some rushes. And we saw Brian Hill come in and be productive. Now, he had 6 rushes for 39 yards. So he had a pretty good game too. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry and 2 targets, only 3 less than Gurley. But Gurley, he's getting 14 rushes. He had the big rushing touchdowns. So I think right now you could feel comfortable putting in Todd Gurley. He is the guy. Calvin Ridley, you're going to throw in there. He had a good game last week. He had the 14 and then got a little bit at the end to get you a really solid game. So it seems like he's okay. I trust him. I have him pretty high on my list overall. Let me just double check. I think I have him at 4 this week. I could be wrong, but I might have him at 4 this week. Let me see here. Oh, I'm sorry. We have Calvin Ridley at number 2 this week. It's a great matchup for them. Let's take a look at that. This is why. 4th against wide receiver in points. Obviously, on the other side, Falcons let up points all over. You're going to start Alexander Mattison in a must start. And it pains me to say this because in my main league, guys, the team that doesn't have Dalvin Cook, that happens to have Mattison on their bench, who's in first place, I'm in second place, undefeated, has Alexander Mattison and putting him in their flex this week against me. And it's unfortunate luck. You're going to have to deal with it. Listen, we could see, who knows? Maybe the Falcons will hold him, and I'm hoping for that personally, but I think he's going to end up going off. Generally, when people go against me like that in my main league, they go off. So you're welcome if you have him. Put him in. You can kind of thank me because he's going to go off. And if he doesn't go off, then haha, I don't give a shit. Calvin Ridley is our number 2 wide receiver of the week. He is right behind DeAndre Hopkins, so I think you fire him up regardless. Julio, if he's available, you're going to start him. This is a good matchup and a bounce-back week, in my opinion, for Julio, who's been injured. Especially if he comes back, we find out he's legit healthy, throw him in there. Listen, guys, Zacchaeus, you can drop. He's been disappointment. Even if Julio's out, Matt Ryan, I don't trust right now to get him involved. He could be a sneaky pickup depending on the matchups. But I think I mean, look, this is what happened when he wasn't in last week, and it wasn't great. And we've seen this kind of 2 weeks. We saw these guys kind of step up. Gage has really fluttered out. Zacchaeus might threaten Gage, and that's pretty much it. So if you have Russell Gage and Julio's out, and maybe you want to switch him with Zacchaeus, go for it. But I think Ridley is the only one you can really feel comfortable outside of Todd Gurley for the Falcons this week in particular. Tight end, Hurst, he has not been getting as involved as we would want him to. I don't like him this week. It is a tough matchup. The linebackers for Minnesota are really good. So I think they're a little deceivingly good. On the other side of things, Kirk Cousins, you're going to start him. He has a great matchup this week, of course. You're going to basically start any high-powered offense or any decently high-powered offense with, at the quarterback position going up against Atlanta. Because right now, it's either a shootout or Atlanta is just not playing well and other teams are going off. So Carolina didn't go ham on them last week, but they did play really well. Teddy still had a good game, right? He didn't have to go off, but he had 18 points. Kirk Cousins, I have at number 13, guys. So he's right outside of the border, and that's just in respect to, or disrespect, I guess, for Kirk Cousins' value of, or I guess his tendency of screwing things up. I think Mattison has the must start of the week for this matchup. I love, by the way, Justin Jefferson in a bounce back week, and I love Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, I believe, is pretty high on my list as well. I got him at number 3, so right behind Calvin. So you have the number 2, number 3 receiver. You fire those 2 guys up. DFS, try to get those 2 guys in your lineups. I do believe they're going to go off. If you have to, Jefferson and I think Thielen would be the cool combo to do with Kirk Cousins in that. I think that would be a great combo. You throw in Todd Gurley, try to get Mattison in your lineup, and then, if you can get any of those guys. Now, the other guys, if you're going to do like a showdown lineup, right? I think if Julio is out, Zacchaeus could be the guy that you throw in there. I do also like maybe Mike Boone to kind of sneak in there. Could be a really cheap option for the lineup. And Irv Smith. Now, Irv Smith, I don't love, but I kind of do love him this week in terms of maybe getting some more targets and value. His targets and his volume is going up. First against tight ends. You're starting Kirk Cousins. I love that matchup. You're starting your receivers. Love that matchup. You're obviously going to start Mattison. Well, why not throw in Irv Smith? I think he can get involved this week. And listen, I was kind of going a little fast here yesterday, so I couldn't get him into the lineup, but he had 5 targets last week, 4 catches, his highest target share so far this season, and he was involved. I think that goes up this week. I do love Irv Smith in a good matchup here. I also do kind of like the Vikings defense, even in a tough matchup here. They haven't been overly amazing, but they've been pretty good. They're pretty good against the quarterback. I don't expect Matt Ryan to have an amazing game. Tight end, like I said, Hurst can have a struggle. They're going to have to get the receivers involved. And if Julio's out, Vikings all of a sudden become a very interesting option to stream the defense this week against the Falcons team, who, yes, it could be a lot of points, but let's be real. If Julio's out and they're featuring one receiver and they have to go with the run game, it could be a bad game for Matt Ryan and for this Falcons offense. So I do like Minnesota in that game, by the way. I think Jefferson has a big bounce back week. I really like him. I have him, guys, just to give you the idea, at number 21. So he's going to be your number 2, essentially. I have him right above Jamison Crowder. Terry McLaurin stepped down. Chase Claypool at number 24, by the way. He is right below DJ Chark or Devontae Parker. Now, if DJ Chark is out, throw in Jefferson. And even if he's not, you can argue that Jefferson has a better matchup, that maybe he's even better than, say, DJ Chark, Parker, Beckham, and maybe Marquise Brown. I would even potentially start him over those guys this week. That's how much I like this matchup. I think they're going to highlight and try to key in on Adam Thielen. And if that's the case, it's going to open up things for Justin Jefferson. Listen, Seattle played them pretty well and they had some people back. I don't think they're going to play the same way here in Atlanta. Now, the next matchup here, we have the Detroit Lions guys going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars and Gardner Minshew. Now, I had both these quarterbacks in my 3rd league with my buddy Raz. And it's been a rough one in that league. We just got a win, though, with Minshew last week. He put up 19 points. He's playing well. And it's pretty obvious the consensus idea about the Jaguars offense for Gardner Minshew in particular. If DJ Chark is in, feel comfortable starting Gardner Minshew, especially in good matchups. All right. In bad matchups, maybe there's a different streaming option you might throw in. But that's going to be the question mark for this game in particular. And that's if DJ Chark is going to be back. We don't know. He got hurt again in this game, only put up 3 points. So those kind of games I really do hate. It sucks. not being able to throw someone in to replace a guy that was injured because he got hurt in the game. But if he's not in, guys, Laviska Shenault should get a tick up. Keelan Cole can get a little tick up, but I also would be really hesitant here. The Lions are pretty good against tight ends, really good against tight ends, pretty good against quarterbacks here. They have Jeff Okudah. They're getting a little healthier. They're coming off their bye. Kenny Galladay's back. I think he explodes on the scene, even in a tough matchup, and we'll talk about that. I think this is the kind of week where part of me is a little scared of Gardner Minshew, but look at what the receivers are doing against the Lions. Look what the running backs are doing against the Lions. If he can get them involved and lean on James Robinson and so forth, then maybe Gardner has a good day. So I do like Gardner this week. I'm going to be a little cautious because I think, hey, it could be a little tough for him. But at the same time, they're not using their tight ends. So the position that Lions are pretty stingy at on defense isn't really an issue for this Gardner Minshew-led offense here. I think the biggest question mark for Jacksonville would be on their side if DJ Chark is out. I still would have Gardner Minshew ranked pretty high, but maybe a tick down a little bit here. When I look at him on my list here, he is at number 12, above Kirk Cousins that we just talked about, above Wentz, who we talked about, just under, like, say, Matthew Stafford, who I do have at 10. I like him in this matchup as well, and that might change. But I do like, I don't care about the 23rd here this week. I think Galladay is that good of a talent. You have Hawkinson and you have Peterson in the run game and them. And I think he could do some things with Swift here as well. That I do like Stafford at number 10. He's kind of on my sleeper there. But these guys are kind of hand in hand. I think they're both going to bring you around 19 to 20 fantasy points. Minimum of 17 points for me this week. And I'm cool with that. I really am. At the same time, James Robinson, bounce back week this week. I do expect that. 13 carries. He did have 7 targets in the passing game. So he had 20 touches, or 20 targets rather. 18 touches. I think that goes up this week even more. They're going to get him heavily involved. I think they'll be able to score a little better than they did against Houston. Houston came out a little stingy last week, and their defense is shockingly good when their offense is playing well. So it's no surprise that Deshaun played well, and their defense is playing better. This week, I don't know if that's going to be the case for the Lions. I do think the Jaguars will come out. I'm going to be cautious. I feel like something inside is telling me like Gardner might have a down week. But I'm going to keep him at number 12 right now and just wait to DJ Chark. If DJ Chark is out, that will kind of lower my expectations for him. And it could even tailor in a trend up, rather, for the Lions and Matthew Stafford. On the other side of things, guys, listen, if you need a running back this week and you want to go the route, Adrian Peterson, he's a good floor option for you. I wouldn't go with Swift. It's just you need to see volume. And this could be the week where you see volume. Don't get me wrong. So if you have those guys, it's a good matchup. So if you got to do what you got to do, you have buys this week. You're missing, Alvin Kamara. You're missing the Chargers running backs, and you don't have guys. You have Adrian Peterson. Listen, go for it, man. I think he'll be okay. It's a good matchup for that. I think this game is going to be a more run game overall with sprinkles of pass, and then it's going to turn into a pass game. So I do like that matchup for him. Again, DJ Chark, if he's healthy, you start him. Laviska Shenault, if DJ Chark is healthy, I do like Laviska's chances to be a good number 2. Number 1, I still kind of like him, but just a little bit less. He's going to be keyed in on by probably Jeff Okudah, and that's a little tough in my opinion. Colin Johnson, listen, he got involved, got a touchdown, 10 points, Matt's boy. I know he texted me this morning about that. So, yeah, I mean, he got in the end zone, and Matt said you might want to stash him in dynasty leagues and so forth. Well, if injuries keep occurring here, maybe we do see a little bit more Colin Johnson down the road. Right now, you're not rostering him or starting him or putting him in your lineup. So, but just keep that in mind. Remember, Colin Johnson, that's Matt's guy. If he works out, I'm going to give Matt all the credit here. On the other side of things, listen, we don't have the stats from last week for the Lions here, but TJ Hawkinson has a great matchup here. You're going to start him, but be mindful. Listen, he has somewhat of a cap, it feels like, 9 to 10 fantasy points. Maybe this is the week he explodes. But I would also be very cautious. Double check the injuries for the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. They have been decimated by injuries. So if they do get some people back, that could change a lot of the outlooks here. This could be very deceiving. So just be mindful of that. If they get some of their linebackers back, or I think Miles Jack got banged up. So that could be a great matchup for TJ Hawkinson this week. I love Kenny Galladay. Marvin Jones, Matt was on his quit it list. I'm going to be cautious as well. I think, if anything, like Danny Amendola might step up or something, or DeAndre Swift. My comforts here, guys, I do like Matthew Stafford, top 10 this week, in my opinion. Love the matchup. Gardner Minshew, top 12. James Robinson, you're starting. Kenny Golladay, you're starting. TJ Hawkinson, you throw in. You feel comfortable with that tight end situation. DJ Chark, if he's going, you start. Laviska Shenault is a pretty interesting flex option if you're desperate. If DJ Chark is there, he might be a better option there. If he's not, even though he's going to be the premier guy, it's going to be a potential there. They're going to be targets, so he has a chance. So I do like Laviska Shenault this week as well. Defenses, I mean, you're going to take your shot on those, Outside of that, that's really all I see. Chris Thompson, I don't go put him in your lineups. Please don't. I don't want to see people losing because of Chris Thompson. Unless you're so desperate you need to. This could be a decent week for that, though. Lions are 5th against running backs, 7th against wide receivers. So this could be a sneaky, very sneaky Chris Thompson play, but it very well couldn't be. Now, moving right along here, we have the Cincinnati Bengals against the Indianapolis Colts. Tough defensive battle here for the Bengals here. They are going up against a very stingy Colts defense, one of the best in the NFL right now. And I think that's telling, man. We talked about a very particular person last week on the show. You guys know my thoughts on Joe Mixon. Well, this is the kind of game that I expected from Joe Mixon. This is Joe Mixon. This is more Joe Mixon than last week was. 25 carries, 59 yards, 8 targets for 6 receptions, and only 35 yards. I mean, you're talking about 31 carries for like 90 yards. That's not great. It's not great. And no touchdowns. And they get a tougher defense to go up against, in my opinion, this week that probably might have Darius Leonard back, that might have Anthony Walker back. And that's going to be a tough matchup for Joe Mixon. I still don't like him this week. I don't really like anyone from the Bengals this week, to be honest with you. It's a tough matchup all around. If I had to give my hat to someone, you throw in Tyler Boyd, but you don't feel great about it. I'm not starting T. Higgins this week. It is a really tough matchup here overall. I don't like him. Really bad week for Joe Burrow. I think he plays a little better, but I don't think he plays much better. I don't like Joe Mixon this week. I have him probably higher than I should. No, I don't. I have him at 17. Joe Mixon, 17th ranked running back right now. Okay. So, and I'm not even confident about that. I mean, I'm looking down at my list here. Let's see. We have Joe Mixon, right? I have Lev Bell below him, obviously. I mean, that's before the whole thing with him being let go. We'll talk about that. Devin Singletary, Gibson below him, which I might bump up. Myles Gaskin, David Johnson, Devontae Freeman, Chase Edmonds. Dude, these are all guys that I might even like when it's all said and done over Joe Mixon this week. It's a tough one for him. That being said, if you have him, most likely you're going to start him. But if you have a better option, if you're talking about David Montgomery or Joe Mixon, I actually would start David Montgomery this week. And I'm not a David Montgomery guy. So that's kind of my take on that situation. I'm phasing out almost everyone else from the Bengals. Tyler Boyd is the only guy, again, I feel comfortable he'll get his targets. Again, T. Higgins had targets too, by the way. 8 targets last week, 4 receptions, 62 yards. He might be the sneakier play to be more productive this week than Tyler Boyd. So if you have Tyler Boyd, be mindful about starting him this week. It could be very well the T. Higgins show because I think Tyler Boyd's going to be more keyed in on. That's just personal. And I think maybe AJ Green might be inactive this week with what's going on. So I think T. Higgins is turning into number 2. He's definitely rosterable right now, and he should be on someone's bench. But I just don't think you feel comfortable with these guys. Maybe, I think I actually like T. Higgins over I do Tyler Boyd this week. Now, on the other side of things, not a great matchup for them either, but a little bit better from the running back, wide receiver, and tight end perspective for the Colts offense. Mo Alley-Cox doesn't look like he's going to play, so this could be the Jack Doyle show. Could be a nice sleeper off the waiver wire if someone doesn't have him right now, because of Mo Alley-Cox. It could be an interesting option for you if you need a tight end this week. Jared Cook's out, Hunter Henry's out, Darren Waller's out, like we said. So Jack Doyle could be a really interesting bye-week filler option for you this week. Decent matchup here. You could expect their defense to play better than the Bengals defense, and it could open up some good situations for the Colts offense. Jack Doyle, start him. I like him this week. Wide receivers, I do not like, even though it's a little easier of a matchup here. T.Y., Zach Pascal, I don't trust him right now. The rapport is just not there with Phillip Rivers. He relies more on tight ends. It's obvious when you look at the targets here. 6 for Trey Burton. Oh, I'm sorry. I say Jack Doyle, Trey Burton 2. That could be tailoring into that. I always forget about Trey Burton's back. But I do think that caps your excitement about using a Jack Doyle. But I just don't like Trey Burton. I don't think he's as good as people think he is. But the targets are there, 6 for 5 for 33 yards. If Jack Doyle's not going, if Mo Alley Cox is out, then yeah, Trey Burton is the guy. I'm sorry, not Jack Doyle, who should be the guy you're starting in your lineups. If Jack Doyle and Trey Burton are there, I still might go Jack Doyle. I just think that he's the more complete tight end, and I don't know. I have a feeling that he'll be the guy to score if the two of them are going. If not, Trey Burton, I think he's a great start if he's the only tight end available, especially. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is a great start this week, too. 12th against running backs, the Bengals are. Their defense could really help him out this week. I have him at number 8 this week, so he's a top 10, top 8 running back. I think we continue going with that, and you move forward, feel good about Jonathan Taylor. I think he'll have a better week than he did last week at the end of the day. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Dave Sarner, your host on the Rise and Fall Fantasy Football Show. Have a great day, and stay safe, and I hope you guys all win your matchups this weekend.